Good morning. This is Michelle. I'm going to go over your visual arts assignment. This is assignment number 1 in the section called Functional Area Creative. And we are in the competency area number 2, physical and cognitive development. So the title of this assignment is "Why do my child's new shoes have paint all over them?" and other tales of an early childhood art experience. So if you're already in a center working with young children, you can probably relate to that question. So as usual, I'll begin with the why. Why are we doing this? So when we work with young children, the relationship we have to families is part of our commitment, as part of our program's commitment to building community with them. And the conversations we have with families can sometimes become confusing for them because they're not entirely sure of what we're doing with their children in the classroom and why. This really, really shows up in the realm of visual arts because many times what we're doing with them in the classroom comes home in the form of stains on their clothes, paint on their shoes, paint or markers, marks on their hands and fingers, things like that. And as we know, some children also like to make art on their faces. So this can become confusing for parents about what's happening because it could feel like lack of supervision, that we didn't know the child was doing that and somehow it happened without our knowledge. I always felt like that was really what was bothering parents about that in some ways. In other ways, it of course bothers them if clothes get art materials on them that cannot be washed out, and clothes cost money, and that's a reality. So that's something we always have to try to be mindful of and careful about. And so the arts is a really unique conversation with parents sometimes, although they really delight in their children's art. So that's a really wonderful plus side of it. Many times what children do in early childhood isn't visible to parents. We tell them they're learning and learning and learning, but they're looking for the school experience evidence of learning that they had growing up, which comes much later on, of course. But anyway, those are just some things to think about when we think about why we're going to do this assignment, because this assignment is designed for you to communicate with the parent about what's happening here. And you've already gone through the modules, so you have some ideas about what that is. So I've included a little funny story here about a teacher who thought they'd really done a great job of making sure parents knew that, the clothes that would come to school could get messy and we wouldn't want to, ruin a good outfit or something. And then the child came to school on the first day in an all white sweatsuit and sweatpants. So I hope that brings you a smile. So the directions. So this is our tell me how to do it part. To begin, I want to let you know what materials you're going to need so that before you start, you can gather them and have them ready. You will need some scrap paper, a pencil and pen for making notes, a scrap paper or a Word doc, PDF, whatever way you use. Some people like to use this program called Canva. Honestly, it's really up to you. You're going to start designing a one-page flyer. You may decide to keep it in Word or a PDF, which is fine. You may decide to design it first on scrap paper, so just do whatever seems right to you. You need a poster board, standard size, markers, craft materials to design it, that sort of thing. If you're going to make a video presentation for parents, that's terrific. You would just need to prepare your notes on scrap paper. So I'm hoping those materials would be clear to you. Always, if you have questions, just let me know. So using the module content in the area of development, where we talked about what's really happening for kids when they're making art. We talked about the physical aspect of it, that they're large muscles. If we're using big paper and easels where they're standing up and they can move their arms without bumping into anyone at the, sitting side by side at the table, making art does not allow you to do that. And we want to remember to have that experience for children. Of course, they're having a small muscle experience because they're holding on to whatever it is they're using to make art. And this is, of course, a sensory experience. Everything is still coming through for young children in a very unfiltered way. So they're experiencing the movement, the smell of the paint, the smell of the paper, the smell of the marker, the smell of the glue, the feel of the glue, the feel of the tape they're using, how it feels to put scissors in their hands and try to move their fingers to make the cuts happen. All of that involves sensory integration. The use of your eye muscles are learning to move in directed ways, all of that. Cognitively, you're beginning to develop images that you can experience, so that the imagery of the art, as it changes, it starts out one thing and it becomes another, then another, then another. So it's in constant motion, and it's changing imagery. And of course, this is social emotional expression. All of art should be expressive at this age. If you want to do craft, you can call it arts and crafts and put it at another spot in the classroom. However, it is not social emotional expression, because anything that has directions, until much later on, that will be more of a focus on the child trying to keep up with the directions versus expressing themselves. So we talked about that a little in the module. When you're using scrap paper, what you're going to do is just make notes under each of these areas. Which ones do you want to focus on for that area? And in this flyer, poster board, or presentation, I want you to create a when I statement for each one. So here's an example of one. When I draw, paint, or use large paper in the art center at an easel, or a long piece of paper taped to the floor or table, my large muscles are engaged to make marks on the page. I can't control all my movements, so sometimes the marks land on me. So in that case, you've switched from telling what you know up here in your notes to now take what you know and talk about it from the child's point of view. What does this mean for me? So I have an example to show you from another assignment called Serve and Return. When I'm showing interest in something, it is a serve. How you respond is the return. And there's some photographs. And here is the child's statement. When I asked what is the word I spelled in the picture at the top, as you know, I'm very interested in spelling words. My teacher said, that is letters in a row. It looks like you would like to spell a word. That was their return. They gave me words to copy the spelling, as you can see in the bottom two pictures, and this was also their return. So this is very simple, with a few pictures to represent it, and I hope that's helpful to see how one teacher approached that particular assignment. So when you go to create these, you will put together this very simple piece. If you're in a multilingual setting, make sure whatever you would share would be translatable for the family, so that the language is very simple and straightforward. If you work with families who are multilingual, you already know best how to communicate with them. If you're submitting a video, you would need to consider how you would make this engaging for parents. So now we get to submitting. You know, as usual, you'll submit in the program as a photo or poster board, and make sure you can see all of your work. Make sure that the flyer is attached or the poster board photo is scanned and attached. However you want to do this, you know how that goes by now, but just as a reminder. And never worry, you can always resubmit. So if it doesn't work out the first time, I think you know by now that we can work that out. And the last piece of this, in terms of our beloved community work, is to remember that these kinds of shares are really helpful in building our beloved community. They really give families and our colleagues the feeling that we want to share what our experiences are of these children. And as long as our focus stays on them, we can remain true to that.